All right, let's get real here. Before you get married, there are a few things you should definitely check off your list. And no, I'm not talking about picking out matching towels or planning the perfect wedding hashtag. I'm talking about the stuff no one tells you, the wild, uncomfortable, sometimes even selfish things that will actually make you ready to spend forever with someone. Because here's the truth. Once you say, I do, it's no longer just about you. So let's make sure you've lived a little, messed up, learned, and laughed before you start sharing a toothbrush holder. Stick around, because I'm counting down things you need to do before you get married. And trust me, some of these might surprise you. 1. Know that marriage is a choice, not a goal. All right, let's start with a big one. Number 1. Marriage is a choice, not a goal. And yeah, I know this might sound controversial. Society loves to make us think that marriage is the ultimate life milestone, like we're all supposed to be on some timeline where happily ever after is the grand finale. But let me tell you, marriage is not a destination or a box you check off to prove you're successful at life. It's a choice, a big one. And the more you see it as a choice, the better that choice is gonna be. Now, don't get me wrong. When I was younger, I definitely thought marriage was the end goal. It felt like if I wasn't married by 30, there was this big neon sign over my head flashing failure for everyone to see. I remember going to weddings and feeling like everyone around me had cracked some secret code to happiness. And the pressure was real. But here's the thing. When we treat marriage as a goal instead of a choice, we start thinking that anything less than married is somehow incomplete. And that's just not true. I once watched a close friend go through this. She got engaged because she felt like it was the next step, even though she had doubts. She had a checklist of life goals, and get married was right there, wedged between buy a house and have 2 kids by 35. It was like she felt her worth was tied to reaching that goal. But deep down, she knew they weren't a good match. And you can guess what happened. It ended. It was painful, but she told me later that she wished she'd seen marriage as a choice and not just something she had to do to feel complete. Marriage isn't the final level of adulthood, and it's not a relationship upgrade where you finally win at love. It's a choice to build a life with someone, and that means you don't just choose it once. You're choosing that person every day. If you're just getting married because you feel like it's what you're supposed to do, you're going to end up making a choice you regret. And let me tell you, when you see it as a choice, that's when it actually gets meaningful. When you're not pressured by society or timelines or that aunt who keeps asking when you're gonna settle down. You're making the decision because you genuinely want to be with this person. And that's the difference between seeing marriage as a lifelong commitment versus a shiny achievement. If I can give you one piece of real talk, it's this. Your life is already whole, married or not. Marriage is an amazing thing, but it doesn't complete you. You're already complete. Choose it if it's right for you, and don't rush into it if it's not. When you're in it for the right reasons, it's a choice you'll never regret. So remember, it's not a goal to win or something to check off. It's a choice, and it's one that's totally worth waiting for. 2. Build a support system outside of your partner. Okay, moving on to number 2. This one might ruffle some feathers. Build a support system outside of your partner. Now, I know, the whole fairy tale romance thing tells us that when you meet the one, they'll be your everything. Your best friend, therapist, fitness buddy, partner in crime, and honestly, just about every role you can imagine. But here's the thing, that's a lot of pressure to put on one person. And expecting your partner to meet every emotional, social, and mental need, that's actually pretty unrealistic. Trust me, you'll want and need a solid support system that goes beyond just the person you're marrying. Now, hear me out, because I know this might sound a little controversial. People say, if your partner is your everything, you're set for life. And yeah, your partner should be one of your biggest support pillars. But we all have friends, family, mentors, people who've been there for us long before our partner showed up. And honestly, they're the ones who will give you advice when you're lost, a reality check when you need one, and, let's be real, a venting session when things get rough at home. I learned this the hard way. Early in my relationship, I thought my partner should be my go-to for everything. We spent so much time together that I started relying on him to be my one-stop shop for all my problems. And yeah, for a while, it felt like we were living this perfect little bubble. But then reality hit. We had our first big fight. And let me tell you, I felt alone in a way I hadn't before. Because I'd spent so much time with him, I'd kind of let my friendships fade. I didn't realize how much I'd been leaning on him for all my emotional support until that bubble burst. It was actually one of my closest friends who gave me the best advice. Just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean you stop being your own person. That hit me like a ton of bricks. Your friends, your family, even co-workers or mentors, they bring out different sides of you, they ground you, and they remind you who you are outside of your relationship. They keep you connected to who you are as an individual, not just as someone's partner. And let's be real, sometimes you just need someone who isn't involved in your relationship to give you an honest perspective. Have you ever tried venting about your partner to your partner? Yeah, it doesn't always go over so well. Having friends who can listen and support you without taking sides is invaluable. Plus, those friends can help you see when maybe you're the one being a little unreasonable, which, yes, does happen once in a while. Here's the deep part. Relying on just one person for all your emotional needs can put a strain on even the strongest relationships. Think of it like a table with only one leg. It's just not stable. Your support system outside of your partner adds those extra legs, making your whole foundation stronger. Your friends, family, mentors, they're there to hold you up, so you're not putting everything on just one person's shoulders. And if you're thinking, I don't need anyone but my partner, I get it. We all get wrapped up in the romance, especially early on. But one of the best things you can do for yourself and for your relationship is to nurture those other connections. Your partner doesn't want the pressure of being your everything, trust me, and having people outside the relationship to lean on isn't a betrayal, it's healthy. So yes, build that support system, keep those friendships strong, make time for family, and stay connected to the people who remind you who you are. Because the best kind of relationship is one where you're each complete on your own, with a strong foundation all around you. And when you've got that, trust me, your relationship will be all the better for it. So remember, keep your partner close, but keep your people close too. Because at the end of the day, you deserve a full life filled with love, laughter, and yes, maybe the occasional friend who will just say, "You're right, they're being ridiculous." 3. Date all the wrong people. All right, brace yourself for number 3, because this one's spicy. Date all the wrong people. Yes, you heard me right. I'm telling you to get out there, swipe right on people who are nothing like you, and maybe even date that guy who your friends secretly call Red Flag Rick. Sounds counterintuitive. It's not. Trust me, there's something powerful and necessary about dating the wrong people before you find the right one. Let's be honest here. You don't actually know what you want in a partner until you know what you don't want. Sometimes it takes dating people who make you want to throw your phone out the window to figure out what you cannot stand. If you've always dated safe people or only gone after the people you think are marriage material, you're missing out on some crucial life lessons. And yeah, maybe a few juicy stories too. Let me give you an example. Back in the day, I dated this guy who was completely wrong for me. Like every friend I had told me it was a disaster waiting to happen. He was unreliable, would disappear for days, had no idea what he wanted in life, and I knew it wasn't going anywhere. But something about it felt exciting. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well. But that relationship taught me more about my deal breakers than any checklist ever could. I learned that I need consistency, that I value clear communication, and that I'm just not the type to chase after someone who can't decide if they're interested. Plus, there's this misconception that every relationship needs to be some serious step toward marriage. That's such nonsense. There's a lot to learn from relationships that are just fun, fleeting, and maybe even a little bit toxic, as long as you're safe and aware. Every wrong person you date is actually helping you refine what you need, what you deserve, and what you absolutely won't tolerate. You're gaining relationship skills and growing in ways you don't even realize. Dating the wrong people also teaches you about yourself. I realized that in certain relationships I was being too accommodating. I wanted things to work so badly that I ignored red flags, overextended myself, and kept making excuses. It took a few wrong relationships for me to learn how to stand up for myself and trust my gut when things felt off. And believe me, once you've been burned by a few people who don't treat you well, you're a lot less likely to settle for that kind of nonsense later. And here's the real deep part. Sometimes the wrong people are actually mirrors. They're showing us our own flaws and insecurities. Dating that unreliable guy. Maybe it was showing me how much I wanted to fix someone. Or maybe it was pointing out that I wasn't confident in my own worth yet. Sometimes we date people who highlight things about ourselves that we need to work on, and we don't get that from a relationship that's all smooth sailing. So yeah, date the people who drive you crazy. Date someone who's a little unpredictable, or maybe even too predictable. Go out with the person who's the complete opposite of your usual type, and while you're at it, enjoy the journey. Because the truth is, by dating people who are wrong, you'll finally start to understand what's right for you. And if you're lucky, you'll have a few hilarious stories to share along the way. And when you do find that right person, you're going to be so much clearer and more secure in who you are and what you want. You'll know the value of what you have because you've learned, sometimes the hard way, what doesn't work. Every wrong person adds a little more depth to your understanding of love, commitment, and most importantly, yourself. So remember, dating isn't just about finding the one. It's about finding yourself along the way, learning what really matters, and building the courage to say no to anything less. The wrong people might just be the best teachers you'll ever have. So go ahead, date the wrong people, make mistakes, laugh about them later, and learn something from every experience. Because each one is getting you one step closer to the person who feels like home. 4. Make peace with your family. All right, number 4. This one is big and maybe a little tough to hear, but stick with me. Make peace with your family before you get married. And yes, I know, some of us come from families that are a little, let's say, challenging. So why is this important? Because whether you like it or not, your family shapes a huge part of who you are. And when you get married, all that family baggage, well, let's just say, it's coming along for the ride. I get it. Family can be messy, complicated, and frustrating as heck. You may be thinking, why should I have to make peace with them? That's on them. But here's the truth. Until you work through those family issues, they'll keep showing up in your relationship. Whether it's unspoken resentment, unresolved anger, or just old wounds you've been carrying around, these things don't magically go away once you say, I do. If anything, marriage tends to bring them right up to the surface. Take it from me, my family has its quirks, to put it mildly. Growing up, I always felt like I had to walk on eggshells around certain people. There was this constant undercurrent of tension, and it was exhausting. I thought getting married would be my escape, that I could start fresh without dragging any of that stuff with me. But guess what? Those same communication issues, those same triggers, they all started popping up in my marriage. I'd get defensive about things that had nothing to do with my spouse, and it took me a while to realize I was still carrying around unresolved issues from my family. So when I say make peace with your family, I don't mean you need to be best friends with them or pretend everything's perfect. I mean you need to deal with the stuff that's weighing you down. Maybe it's having a tough conversation you've been avoiding, or maybe it's just accepting that they're not going to change and choosing to let go of some resentment. You might not be able to control your family, but you can control how you respond and whether you're going to let it keep impacting your future. And let's be real, family tends to show up in ways you don't expect. That time your mum criticized you a little too harshly. It's probably still hanging around somewhere in your head. Those tense family gatherings where you learn to just keep the peace. That's going to impact how you handle conflict in your relationship. Even if you don't think about these things day to day, they have a way of slipping into your marriage. Making peace with your family, or at least with your relationship to them, means freeing yourself from dragging all that into a new relationship. And I know, some of you have dealt with really painful family situations. Maybe there's betrayal, abandonment, or deep-seated hurt that you're still processing. Making peace doesn't mean pretending that pain doesn't exist. It means learning to accept that those things happened, working through them so they don't hold power over you anymore, and choosing how you want to move forward. You can still set boundaries, and sometimes that's the healthiest way to make peace. Plus, let's be honest, marrying someone means you're marrying into another family too. So the more you've sorted through your own family stuff, the better prepared you are to navigate the quirks of your new in-laws. Because trust me, every family has its own brand of interesting, and if you're going to build a strong partnership, you want to come in with as little baggage as possible and a whole lot of understanding. Here's the deep part. When you make peace with your family, you're also making peace with yourself. You're saying, I accept where I come from, and I'm choosing to move forward in a way that serves my happiness and my future. You don't have to love every part of your family, and you certainly don't have to keep toxic people in your life. But making peace, however that looks for you, is an act of self-love. It's giving yourself the freedom to build a life and a relationship that aren't weighed down by the past. So yes, make peace with your family, not for their sake, but for yours. Resolve what you can, accept what you can't, and let go of the rest. You'll be surprised how much lighter you feel and how much clearer your path is to a healthy, fulfilling marriage. Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to break cycles and create something new, and it all starts with making peace. So go on, have that tough conversation, set those boundaries, or just let yourself let go. Trust me, it'll be one of the best things you do before you take the leap into marriage. 5. Be happy with who you are right now. All right, let's talk about number 5, and this one's deep. Be happy with who you are right now. I know, it sounds like one of those things that's easier said than done, but here's the truth. If you're not happy with yourself now, getting married isn't going to magically fix that. In fact, it's only going to make things harder for both you and your future partner. Let's get real for a second. Society has us all thinking that we need to be perfectly polished versions of ourselves before we're worthy of love. We're told to fix all our flaws, lose those extra pounds, level up in our careers, achieve some magical state of self-actualization. And only then will we be ready for love. And I'm here to tell you, that's all nonsense. You don't have to be perfect. But you do need to be okay with who you are right now, imperfections and all. Think of it this way. If you're relying on marriage or another person to give you happiness, you're setting yourself up for a huge letdown. Marriage isn't some magical cure for insecurity, self-doubt, or whatever else you're wrestling with. Your partner can support you, absolutely, but they can't be the reason you feel worthy. You have to bring that to the table yourself. Trust me, I've been there. I used to think that once I found the right person, everything about me that I didn't love would somehow be fixed. I thought being in a relationship would make me feel more confident, less anxious, more complete. But spoiler alert, that didn't happen. If anything, it just put extra pressure on my relationship and led to moments where I was expecting my partner to make me feel happy and secure, when really that's an inside job. And let's just say, that did not work out well. So let me tell you, being okay with who you are right now is a game changer. It's learning to look in the mirror and appreciate what you see, even if there are things you want to work on. It's about saying, this is me, I'm a work in progress, and I'm okay with that. Because if you can't accept yourself, you'll end up looking to your partner for validation and assurance that they just can't provide 24/7. And that creates a lot of pressure on a relationship, which honestly is just unfair to both of you. When you're happy with yourself, something amazing happens. You bring your whole self to the relationship. You're not looking to your partner to fill gaps or make you feel worthy. You're showing up as a complete person, which not only makes you a better partner, but also strengthens the entire foundation of the relationship. I'm talking about the freedom to be vulnerable, the confidence to stand up for your needs, and the ability to truly be there for someone else because you're not constantly doubting yourself. Now, does this mean you have to be 100% content with every part of your life before you get married? Absolutely not. It just means working on accepting yourself as you are, flaws and all. And that's a journey. Maybe you're still figuring out your career, or you haven't quite tackled those insecurities you're carrying around. That's okay. But you have to choose to see yourself as worthy, as enough, because when you believe that, your partner will feel it, and your relationship will be built on two whole people, not one person trying to complete the other. And hey, it's okay to be a little bit of a mess. We all are. Nobody's perfect, and thank goodness for that, right? But be happy with the version of yourself that exists right now. Embrace the quirks, the flaws, the things you're working on. Love that person, because that's who your partner is marrying, not some idealized version of you that only exists in your head. At the end of the day, the most loving thing you can do for your future partner is to love yourself first. When you walk into a marriage happy with who you are, you're giving your partner the best gift possible, a partner who knows their worth and brings that strength into the relationship. Someone who isn't relying on the other person to complete them, but is choosing to build a life together from a place of confidence and self-love. So yeah, be happy with who you are, right here, right now. Work on loving yourself, flaws and all, because that love will set the foundation for the love you're building with someone else. Marriage isn't about fixing each other, it's about celebrating and supporting each other, and that's only possible when you already know you're worthy of being loved. So take a deep breath, look in the mirror and remind yourself, you are enough right now exactly as you are. And when you walk into a relationship with that kind of energy, that's when the magic really starts. 6. Talk about marriage with your partner, honestly. All right, here's a big one. Talk about marriage with your partner, honestly. I know. This sounds obvious, right? But let me tell you, I can't count how many people waltz into marriage with only the vaguest idea of what the other person wants. And we're talking about the rest of your lives here. Marriage is huge, and not just the wedding part with the cake and the dancing. This is where you dig into the real, sometimes tough stuff, the stuff that can make or break you down the line. Let's get real for a second. Society loves to romanticize marriage as this fairy tale ending. You fall in love, you get married, happily ever after. But if you go into it thinking that, you're in for a rude awakening. I'm talking about the nitty-gritty, unglamorous stuff. What do we want our day-to-day life to look like? How do we handle money? Do we want kids? Where are we going to live? These aren't exactly date night conversations, but believe me, you need to have them. And don't even get me started on the awkward questions, because yeah, there are going to be some. I remember when I first started bringing up the serious stuff with my partner. I thought, oh, we're totally on the same page. We're in love. How hard can it be? And then, boom, we started talking about things like finances and future goals, and I realized we had wildly different expectations. One of us thought we'd be traveling all the time, while the other wanted to settle down ASAP. It was a little bit of a wake-up call, to say the least. Here's the controversial part. Not everyone sees marriage the same way. For some people, it's all about shared finances, a mortgage, and a family. For others, it's about maintaining freedom and independence while having a partner by their side. And both of those are valid if you're honest with each other. But if one person's dreaming of a cozy suburban life and the other is planning to backpack through Asia for a year, well, you might be setting yourselves up for disappointment if you haven't talked about it. Marriage is not just a romantic next step. It's an agreement. And for that agreement to work, you need to know what each of you is actually agreeing to. Are we a team that makes decisions together? Are we open to therapy if we hit rough patches? What about when family conflicts come up? How are we going to handle those? These are the types of questions you should be diving into, because marriage doesn't magically solve anything. If anything, it amplifies what's already there. Look, I'll be the first to admit that these conversations can be uncomfortable, especially early on. There's this fear of sounding too serious too soon, or even scaring the other person off. But here's the thing. If they're not willing to talk about marriage with you, you might want to think twice about marrying them in the first place. You deserve someone who's just as invested in these discussions as you are. And you know what's funny? Once you start talking honestly, it actually brings you closer. When I finally laid out my fears, my hopes, and yes, my pet peeves about marriage with my partner, it was like a weight lifted. We weren't living in this fantasy of perfect couple anymore. We were actually two people being real with each other about what we wanted, and I felt so much safer knowing we'd tackled those hard topics up front, even when we didn't totally agree on everything. Here's the deep part. When you talk honestly about marriage, you're setting the foundation for your entire relationship. You're showing your partner that you're committed to working through the messy, complicated stuff, not just the romantic highlights. That's the real love. It's not just saying, I love you. It's saying, I'm here to figure out life with you, even when it's hard, and even when it means tough conversations. When you do that, you're not just dating. You're building something real, something that has a fighting chance of lasting. And hey, if you're already in a relationship, don't panic if you haven't had these talks yet. It's never too late to start. Make it a fun thing. Grab some wine, sit down, and go through the big questions. You might be surprised by how much you learn about each other and how much closer it brings you. So, yes, talk about marriage, and not just the fairy tale parts. Be honest, be open, and don't be afraid to tackle the hard stuff. Because when you lay it all out on the table, you're giving your relationship the best possible chance to thrive. You're telling your partner, I'm not just here for the good times, I'm here for the real times. And that's what marriage is all about.